good evening. We are broadcasting live from our headquarters in Canifing, and this is the news coming to you straight from the Gambia Radio and Television Services. Also coming up, President Barrow has received in audience the delegations of imams from various communities across the country and members of the Balanta Society at the State House in Banjul. The Gambia Public Procurement Authority has cleared the Independent Electoral Commission for the procurement of election materials worth $3 million. The governor of the Lower River region has called on the Gambia Immigration Department to issue national identity cards to eligible Gambians without any form of discrimination. And in sports, the Gambia Football Federation First Division League has continued over the weekend with BK Milan and Marimo football clubs topping Week 5 encounters. And in the internationals, leaders of the G5 Sahel countries have convened a two-day meeting on jihadist insurgency with France on a soul-searching mission to determine its operational unusefulness on the counter-terrorism scheme. Well, these and many other stories coming ahead in the next 45 minutes. Thank you for joining us. Well, many thanks for joining GRTS News with me, Fatu Janimbai, and we begin this edition of the Bulletin with the Presidency, where His Excellency Adama Barrow on Saturday received in audience the delegations of imams from various communities across the country and the members of the Balanta Society at the State House in Banjul. As Momodu Jallo reports, the discussions were frank but promising. More in this report.
The Imam Association of Bundung is an umbrella organization that brings together religious leaders from the community of Bundung. They were at the State House to manifest support to the President and seek support for their association and its membership. Speaking at the meeting, the Secretary General of the association, Colin Bake, said it was formed 2 decades ago to promote the welfare of members and support worthy causes. He commended President Barrow for entrenching peace and stability in the country, reassuring that as religious leaders, they are always praying for him.
This association, we meet at the Central Mosque of Bundung. We do pray for him, and we pray for the government. Maybe you are not aware, but this is happening. Because when there is peace, you are the one who gave us the air of freedom in this country. The air of justice in this country. We have realized all that is through your government and your leadership. We are happy and we are grateful for breathing that air.
Imam Mahdi Sane thanked the President for giving them the platform to discuss issues of concern to the Imams, lamenting that as religious leaders, they struggle to make ends meet and would therefore want government to support them with financial incentives. The Imam Ratib of Bundung, Mohammed Jaite, said Imams do not oppose a sitting government and as such will use their influence in society to mobilize support for the President and his development agenda. He said Imams play a key role in society, providing spiritual and religious guidance to the community, but lamented that their services are not rewarded. Several other Imams called for unity and support for the President, adding that God gives leadership positions to any of his servants, and all Muslims must accept such divine decisions. The Presidential Advisor on Religious Matters, Alhaji Dembo Bojang, disclosed that President Barrow has fulfilled all the promises made to Gambians. He therefore urged the Imams to pray for the Gambian leader, as he has shown restraint and patience. He commended the religious tolerance in the country and enjoined Imams to maintain the status quo to prevent conflicts of any religious nature.
Dino fitino mam etea. Dino fitino ka banko tinyal. Dino fitino ka badwol wadin. Ning atrabado wadaka Qur'ano karanyin.
The Minister of Tourism and Culture, Hamad Nkeba, expressed belief that traditional Islamic schools should be supported by government as they form an integral part of the education system in the Gambia. He also enjoined Imams to use their sermons to preach peace and hold government accountable if the need arises. Meanwhile, the Minister of Regional Government and Lands, who is also responsible for religious affairs, urged Imams to work together to oppose any form of religious intolerance or extremism in the country, adding that government is working with its partners to support religion and religious leaders. He assured that government is aware of their plight and will review their situation to explore possibilities of supporting them. The President, His Excellency Adam Barrow, expressed delight at receiving what he described as a distinguished delegation of imams to discuss issues of national importance. He described the association as very important, urging others to use it as a template to organize imams to speak with one voice. The President said his government respects religious leaders, recalling how he took his first decision as President to free 3 imams who had been held by his predecessor. He added that his government has taken the unprecedented step of providing funds to both the Islamic and Christian councils.
Dino la kafo membe Gambia kono nyanta subvention dile la pour ya dino nyin tamandi yela office nyin administrate no inin dina mol si kacano banko kan ni ko rote boy de no ngaw subvention nga créer subvention nyin folo ngono ye million tan dila sa wosan bari nga jubel na budgeto kono nga jube million tan siatal na ratala nga ke million lulu nyina ye ko do nyi access la nyina alam ila ministre bi janne.
Speaking about the welfare of imams, President Barrow pledged to lead an advocacy campaign to support imams with funds to enable them to augment their livelihoods, describing the job as purely voluntary. The President also hoping that the Muslim community should support imams by donating funds, arguing that society should be organized enough to help religious leaders. On a final note, President Barrow urged imams to use their pulpits to preach peace and stability, instead of using it as political platforms to instigate people against the government. The imams left after receiving strong guarantees of support from the President and his cabinet members. Then came members of the Balanta Society, who also were at State House to express support to President Barrow. The President of the Society, Edward Prera, said President Barrow has shown real commitment to work with all Gambians, as expressed in his statement during the launching of the National People's Party. He therefore assured him of the Balanta support, appealing for logistics to embark on a sensitization tour across the country to unify the Balanta community under President Barrow. The youth representative of the community, Musa Damfa, appealed for support for the Balanta youth to enable them access scholarships and jobs.
Most of them after high schools, they couldn't continue due to lack of support and funding. It caused them to wander and walked away and doing other things that we or the parents don't wish them to be.
President Barrow welcomed the community to the State House, adding that it conforms with the government's policy of building bridges with all groups in the Gambia. He promised to support the Balanta community, especially in their stated objectives of sensitizing their members on the upcoming voter registration exercise. The President also advised the community members to integrate in their societies and take advantage of the opportunities provided by his government. Momodu Jallo, GRTS.
And now to a press release from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Gambians Abroad, and it reads, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and Gambians Abroad on Sunday, 14th February, delivered a special message from the President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency President Adam Barrow, to the Emir of the State of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Mamoudou Tangara, is in Qatar as a special envoy of His Excellency President Adam Barrow. The Honorable Minister held diplomatic engagement with His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdurrahman Al Thani, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar. The two leaders discussed bilateral cooperation in health, road construction, capacity building for security forces, amongst others. The release continued that views were also exchanged on regional and international issues. Still with his diplomatic engagement, the Honorable Foreign Affairs Minister also met with the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the State of Qatar, His Excellency Ali bin Faytaz Al Mari. Discussions between the two leaders centered on issues of mutual interest, one of which involves strengthening legal cooperation between the two friendly countries, it concludes. And now, the Gambia Public Procurement Authority, GPPA, has cleared the Independent Electoral Commission, REC, to procure election materials worth $3 million United States dollars. Earlier, we spoke to the Director of Communications at the REC, Mr. Joseph Cooley, for more answers on the process, protracted by back and forth engagements that later involved various state intermediaries. Here's an excerpt. process was protracted. What was the cause? How and when has it finally settled?
Well, I can say there was something like a misunderstanding, and as you said, we went back and forth, and the consensus was to cancel the first tender and then retender. And this time around, not to make it an open tender, so to restrict the tender, because initially it was open, tender for a month, and interested bidders were sent in their bids. So at that point in time, only 4 companies sent in their bid. So when it was cancelled, we had to restrict the tender to these 4 companies, and we gave them a shorter window, 2 weeks, and the bids were opened. We did the evaluation and then sent a report to the GPPA, and then on Friday we received a letter from GPPA granting approval.
Approval. Yeah. Right. Now, who are the final winners of this contract, and what does the contract entail?
Yes, we're talking of procurement of voter registration materials. Now, when you talk about, it's not just the supply, but it's the actual conduct of voter registration exercise.
Okay.
So you don't just supply, but you accompany the IEC in all aspects of the registration, up to the printing of the register. So that's that. Yeah.
Right.
So that's the whole exercise.
Exercise, yes. Okay. Now going further, why will the IEC, of course, stick to its traditional Canadian partners, despite many local players now ready to be tested?
Yes, the problem is, as I said, it's not single sourced. So if you say why, like as if it's not single source, it was open tender.
Open, okay.
Huh?
But
so
it was later restricted, right?
Yes, because it's restricted because it was cancelled. So we couldn't just open it again. Because once it's cancelled, you make it restricted. Yeah, but it was open. So people, what we want to tell people is that if any other company were the most responsive, we would have gone with it. But you see, I don't want to talk about it because, procurement is a process. Process in the sense that approval has been given, but there is what is called a standstill window, wherein a lot of other things have to be put on board. Okay. So I wouldn't want to go into that. Yeah. So because the process is still going on, even though approval has been given on the recommendations for ESI to be given the contract. Yeah.
Right. Now, considering the political fragility, of course, of the new democratic atmosphere, now what assurance can the REC give regarding counting mistakes in the December polls?
Yes, it is too early for us to talk about counting mistakes. But right now, we're focusing on the voter registration. Now, immediately, the assurance that we can give the Gambians is the registration will be done on time, so that, and a credible voter registration for that matter. Because I'm just coming from training, we have what? Elections is time bound. So whatever you do, you have to plan very well. Okay, right now what we're doing is all our staff and the directors, we are on training on voter registration and voter education. So from there on, we have what? We cannot tell the Gambian people right now, when the registration will be. Okay. But immediately after the signing of the contract, we would have, adjusted the timeline. Because whatever happens, when you look at Section 16 of the Elections Act, it tells us that the Commission should publish in the Gazette and in the newspapers, the period for registration.
Date, okay.
Yeah, so that should be 30 days before the commencement of registration. So we're working towards this, and we're making sure, because let me just give you a background. With all these things that are going on, the IEC was doing other work. We visited the whole country, all the principal registration officers and the regional officers visited the country. Like I give you an example, in KMC we used to have 76 registration centers. Now with this coming registration, we're going to have 98 registration centers.
Wow.
So you see, when you talk of principles of registration, you know, like you have fairness, you have sustainability and all the other
transparency
things.
and
Yes,
all of
and all
that.
those things. So like we're harping on accessibility. Like we don't want people to walk maybe more than 5 kilometers to
Without a voting center.
yeah, voting center.
All right.
So these are some of the things that we're doing, and then our officers are working. Some of them have even finished team movement. What I mean team movement is the rotation of the teams. You know, I used to have, I mean, like the IEC used to have 40 teams in KMC, but this time around they're going to have 46 teams.
More
so
teams.
We're going to have more personnel, more teams, so that at least we'll be able to register within the 44 days.
Okay.
So we make sure what we want to tell the government people is we want to give them a very credible voter registration.
All right, we want to give them a very credible voter registration. Now, finally, Mr. Colley, now that the procurement of election materials are cleared, what next?
Yes, as I said, we're working very hard, because as you can see, like the signing is not yet done. So that's why I don't want to go into the nitty-gritties.
Okay.
So once that thing is done, then we'll be able to publish.
Okay.
We'll give the people the date for the commencement of the registration. Yeah.
Very well. Many thanks to you, Mr. Colley. That was the Communications Director at the Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Joseph Colley, on the clearing by GPPA for the procurement of election materials worth $3 million United States dollars. Many thanks for joining us on the news. The process. Well, that was the Communications Director at the Independent Electoral Commission, Joseph Colley, earlier speaking to us on the clearing by GPPA for the procurement of election materials worth $3 million US dollars. Well, still on the electoral process and national security mechanisms ahead of the December elections is the governor of the Lower River Region, Rohijon Manjang, who called on the command of the Gambia Immigration Department to issue national identity cards to eligible Gambians without any form of discrimination. The disclosure was made during the provincial leg of a countrywide tour by the Immigration Director General, C.D. Ture, which ended at Quinala on Friday. And as GRTS's Bob Kamara reports, the immigration boss has also issued his warning to individuals bent on obtaining national documents by false pretense.
Migration, is a hot cake, everywhere, in the continent. Now, to be able, to independently, stand on your own, and also being complemented, by government, and other security establishments, we think, it's absolutely necessary for us to have our own structures throughout the length and breadth of the country. And this is one of the reasons that necessitated this trip.
From an ambition to an all-out campaign to realize a 5-year strategic plan that is set to construct regional headquarters for personnel of the Gambia Immigration Department, DG C.D. Ture and team continued their tour in the Upper and Lower River regions. A previous meeting held at Basse and Mansa Konko has not been the one many heads of department will preside over, for its frank discussion certainly marks a new turning point in the administration of any national security outfit.
The reason was all about the officer came to headquarters and then visited my office. When he visited my office, somebody, an informant from headquarters, gave that information to the commissioner, telling him that I saw so and so in operations office. As soon as he returned, the guy was moved from Bansang to Firdausi. Is that proper?
From a previous visit at Sabi and Fototo border post in the Upper River, to its latest at the Misra boundary between the Gambia and Senegal in the Lower River regions, intersecurity border management and control has been cordial, and its height has reached new dimensions, anticipated to ease the work of the Immigration Command at both ends.
Frontier committee.
Working at any border post is difficult because you come across many kind of people. Gambian immigration officers have shown maturity in handling any kind of situation. Our discussions has been to resolve our own problems here without the knowledge of our respective command in Banjul and Dakar.
Prior discussions held between the Immigration Command and regional authorities in both the upper and lower river regions has been frank, but pacifying to avoid any reoccurrence of obtaining national documents by false pretense, as usually approved by some local authorities in many cases.
The president of the day has made it very clear to us, because I was in a midst when somebody was complaining about this ID card issue. He clearly said that we voted for change. And that change is to make sure that we maintain the identity of the Gambian. All those who are entitled to be citizens of the Gambia should be given documentations. We are also giving the trust to immigration officers and all services attached to this to make sure that they portray the highest ethical standards to make sure that nobody is discriminated.
As his tour ends in provincial Gambia, his visits continue in the Greater Banjul area. Babukar Kamara, GRTS.
And now elsewhere, we shift attention to legislative matters and head to the National Assembly in Banjul, where sit-ins of the Public Enterprise Committee today continued. As Famara Baji reports, officials of the Alternate Dispute Resolution Secretariat were deferred for failure to submit a complete report, which should have declared their backlog stretching back to 2016, I beg your pardon.
Alternative justice delivery, exploring other means beyond conventional legal processes, was introduced in the Gambia to discourage litigation and reduce the constant backlog affecting criminal and civil courts across the isle. The key roles of the Alternate Dispute Resolution Secretariats include support to parties seeking advice relating to dispute settlement, making them a vital national institution involved in peace building and promotion. The ADRS appeared before the National Assembly Public Enterprise Committee for the annual legislative interface and scrutiny of its activity and finances, but no significant progress was registered, as the Secretariat failed to present a complete report, which would have helped to clear a backlog of reports dating back to 2016. ADRS Executive Secretary Kumba Jau tried to break down the reasons for the extended delay in presenting activity and financial reports.
We've been patiently waiting for their arrival at our offices for the auditing, and we've not had anything from them since. So please, maybe we put that question to them, and we can engage them once we leave here to know when they will be able to.
The National Audit Team also chipped in to give their version of the issue raised by ADRS officials.
And for this year also, in our plan, we have slotted them for March and April. Even though we have not received these 2018 and 19, we have slotted them for March and April for the field work. But we are yet to receive the statements here. That is the situation.
As the chair requested for a date to deliver complete reports covering 2018 and 19, the ADRS boss pleaded for an extension to grant the institution time to work out existing gaps with auditors. The PEC committee unanimously agreed to adjourn this session to give ADRS more time to successfully present a fully audited report after consultations with the National Audit Office. Famara Baji, GRTS News.
Well, still ahead, still with parliamentary matters, the National Assembly's Select Committee on Health and Humanitarian Relief has today paid a courtesy visit to the Child Protection Alliance and the Banjul International Airport. The engagement forms part of a 6-day countrywide tour that entered its second phase in the Greater Banjul area and nearing its end. As Fatimata Cham reports, the committee are to visit disaster hotspots and examine measures devised to stop the spread of COVID-19.
As the tour by the committee nears its end, the lawmakers mandated to provide oversight on children's issues in the country paid a visit to the Child Protection Alliance. The visit avails the committee the opportunity to hear the challenges affecting child protection efforts in the country. The national coordinator of the CPA tells the committee that the Gambia has done well in ratifying well-meaning laws, but they are insufficient to protect children from violence and exploitation.
Unfortunately, that with all these good laws we have, with all these policies we have, well-intended policies for that matter, never translate to addressing the realities of around children in this country. Thus, it has created an environment where children are continuously being exposed to all forms of abuse.
The CPA provides the necessary checks and balances on the state on the issues of child protection in the country. The civil society organization insists government's commitment on child protection issues leaves a lot to be desired.
If you want to create a conducive environment for children, it's not only having laws. You've realized government has never been that much committed when it comes to issues of investment.
Committee members took turns to weigh in on child protection issues as they expressed their resolve to support the work of the organization in a bid to enhance the welfare of children.
We are here today to come and hear from you what you are doing in terms of your mandate, your mission as an organization, and that what you would want the committee to know and to do to support your work. We can equally support your work. As you know, it's a committee that can initiate laws, that support your work, create the environment for you to work, operate.
The delegation also visited the Banjul International Airport, where the final touches of renovation work are being done. The coronavirus pandemic has taken a visible toll on the once busy airport. Officials say efforts are being strengthened to mitigate the spread of the virus at the entry point.
At the gate going out to the public concourse, you will meet the health officers again. This time they are asking for your COVID test result, because here they only make sure you are okay to enter and deal with us. There they will make sure that you have the COVID test result, and that if you are from a country that is the hotspot, then you will be put on that lane to the bus, and then you will go to quarantine.
The 6-day tour is expected to culminate into a stakeholder meeting that will devise and push for actionable solutions to the issues highlighted over the past days. For GRTS News, I am Fatoumata Cham.
And elsewhere, the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GAIBA, in partnership with the Financial Intelligence Unit, has today begun the second round of its mutual evaluation pre-assessment training for stakeholders on anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing. As Usman Mane reports, participants drawn from government institutions, private sector, as well as the security apparatus are set to look into the implementation of anti-money laundering financing policies in finance, legal, and governance matters.
The mutual evaluation pre-assessment training provides a platform for stakeholders of the Gambia anti-money laundering and counter-financing terrorism regime to be exposed and acquainted with the assessment process, which forms the basis of the second evaluation expected to be conducted from August 22nd to 3rd September this year. The first round of evaluation was held in 2008 by the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GRTS, which informed the establishment of the Intelligence Financial Unit, among others. Representative of the Director, FIU, Momodu Saho, highlighted some of the ratified international obligations.
The Gambia has ratified and domesticated key United Nations conventions, such as the UN Convention Against Illicit Traffic in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances, the UN Convention for the Suppression of International Financing of Terrorism, UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, and UN Convention Against Corruption. In addition to these key conventions, the Gambia has also developed a national regulation for the implementation of UN Security Council resolutions against terrorist financing, which provides mechanism for the freezing of funds linked to terrorists or terrorist organizations without delay.
Speaking on behalf of the Director, GIABA, Dr. Buno Nduka, explained the importance of the evaluation in spurring economic growth for member countries, while noting the deficiency in capacity and market analysis to effectively monitor financial institutions and relevant players.
Notwithstanding the progress made, certain deficiencies still exist which the country should address. In particular, as noted in the Secretariat analysis of the 14th follow-up report of the Gambia, the country is expected to intensify efforts to criminalize the full range of the FATF-designated predicate offenses of money laundering, especially market manipulation. The country also should carry out capacity building of law enforcement agencies on effective investigation of money laundering and terrorist financing cases.
In his keynote address, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mamburi Njai, who was deputized by the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Julde Sise, noted the validation and conclusion of the National Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing Risk Assessment as a means of mitigating illicit financing activities.
The NRA is an important national exercise through which the money laundering, terrorism financing risks associated with the Gambia financial system and wider economy have been identified and assessed. Accordingly, an action plan has been developed based on the risks and shortcomings identified. The action plan will ultimately help inform sound policy for an effective anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism, AML and CFT regime in the country.
Participants are expected to go through the assessment processes through discussions and exercises in these 5 days ahead of the evaluation proper. Usman Mane, GRTS.
The Food and Agriculture Organization has today presented 13 motorbikes and tools for data collection to the Department of Planning under the Ministry of Agriculture. As Khadija Tujuara reports, the donated equipment will help in the coordination efforts of the ministry's efforts geared towards improving agricultural production and productivity.
Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO of the United Nations, on Monday presented 13 motorbikes and tools for data collection to the Department of Planning under the Ministry of Agriculture. The donated equipment is meant to support the Agri Ministry in planning and production services. Speaking at the presentation ceremony, head of programs at the FAO, Dr. Mustafa Sise, said supporting the Department of Planning will significantly promote the country's agriculture sector.
It is indeed a pleasure to be here today to present on behalf of the FAO country office 13 motor bicycles, IT equipment, and some other items. I hope that these motorbikes and IT equipment will be put to good use, and it will enhance your capacity to collect data, analyze, utilize, disseminate, and enhance access of farmers to data.
Dr. Sise reiterated his organization's continuous commitment in promoting national development. The Deputy Permanent Secretary Projects and Programs at the Ministry of Agriculture, Fatou Jame Toure, said the donated items will go a long way in enhancing the working environments of staff.
Here we are to present tools that will efficiently help the planning services to collect correct data to help in rational decision making.
Madam Jame Toure, however, thanked the Food and Agriculture Organization for the kind gesture, while assuring that the materials will be properly utilized. Reporting for GRTS News, I am Khadija Tujuara.
Well, from the report by our Khadija Tujuara, we'll now take our first break. When we return, we'll take a look at some soccer news to stay with us. to GRTS News at 2200 hours and in sports. The National Male Division 1 League of the Gambia Football Federation has continued over the weekend, with BK Milan and Marimo football clubs sharing the spoils in their Week 5 encounters. Famara Baji witnessed the contest and tells us more in this report.
A boring encounter under a boring atmosphere failed to produce a winner as BK Milan in blue shared points with Marimo in orange. There was nothing in the way of excitement. From start to finish, the game was full of stoppages and misplaced passes. Not until in the closing stages that a first shout for a goal chance echoed, when BK Milan saw an attempt run agonizingly wide after a deflection. Both Marimo and BK Milan lacked composure, exposure, cohesion, and even individual brilliance, even though BK Milan reserved the rights to call themselves the better side as per performance. But what matters, a win, could not be achieved at the end as the tie ended goalless.
It was a good game from us. Defensively, we did not concede. So I think this is the best game we have played defensively. The other games, we took goals. Last game, we did not. So I think defensively, we are improving as a unit. So I think it was a good game. Unfortunately, we shared points, but we could have won the game 1-0 or 2 or 3. So I think it was good.
Yeah, our performance was better, It's a mixed feeling in the performance, Yeah, because they have their game plan, we have our game plan. But nevertheless, it couldn't work our way, it didn't work on their way. But we work for next game,
In the other games, Royal de Banjul suffered a shocking 3-1 defeat to Gambia Ports Authority. Becoming United drew goalless with the stubborn Wa Banjul side. Fortune FC maintained themselves on top of the table with a 1-0 win over Gamtel. Famara Baji, GRTS News.
And from sports, we shift attention to news beyond our shores, and leaders of the G5 countries in the Sahel have convened a two-day meeting today with the French president joining via video link. The gathering could decide France's future role in the conflict against jihadists in the region. The operation's unusefulness has prompted soul-searching in France, despite a suggestion by the French president to adjust its military presence in the Sahel. And elsewhere, for the first time in over 100 years, the world's biggest carnival is cancelled in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. The mayor of Rio de Janeiro was adamant that most gatherings will be forbidden. Over 1,000 police officers have been dispatched with mission to flash out clandestine celebrations. The reality is harsh for the city of Rio, but residents are looking at new ways to celebrate this carnival. And from the internationals, a recap of our top stories once again before we end this bulletin of the news on GRTS at 2200 hours with me, Fatu Janimbai. President Barrow has received in audience the delegations of imams from various communities across the country and members of the Balanta Society at the State House in Banjul. The Gambia Public Procurement Authority has declared the Independent Electoral Commission for the procurement of election materials worth $3 million. The governor of the Lower River region has called on the Gambia Immigration Department to issue national identity cards to eligible Gambians without any form of discrimination. And in sports, the Gambia Football Federation First Division League has continued over the weekend with BK Milan and Marimo football clubs topping Week 5 encounters. And in the internationals, leaders of the G5 Sahel countries have convened a two-day meeting on jihadist insurgency with France on a soul-searching mission to determine its operational unusefulness on the counter-terrorism scheme. Well, that was all in this edition of the news at 2200 hours here on GRTS. From myself and the entire team, many thanks for watching and good night.
As the Gambia nears its 56th independence anniversary, GRTS, in observance of this important event in the nation's calendar, is proud to inform